Nigel Benn.
The suavely dressed man eased himself through the VIP bar with a confidence befitting a man accustomed to the Stardust treatment. This was his domain, and he was looking forward to another hedonistic night full of excesses and extremes. He squeezed a few familiar faces in hugs and winked at a pretty brunette in a figure-hugging mini-dress. As the infamous party animal pushed through the packed crowd in front of him, he was suddenly grabbed from behind and a glass was smashed into his face with tremendous force. He dropped to his knees, clutching his face that had split wide open, screaming in agony. The howls of pain did not deter his attacker, who punched, stomped and kicked him with no mercy. But why would a champion boxer like Nigel Benn and his former best friend, Rolex Ray Sullivan, a convicted dealer and Benn's closest confidant, fall out? And who was behind this savage attack that left Rolex Ray with his once handsome face sporting 105 stitches to hold his nose and face together? Benn was born in Ilford, East London on 22nd of January 1964. He joined the army at the age of 18 and was stationed in West Germany for 3 years, then Northern Ireland for 18 months with the Royal Fusiliers. After leaving the army, Benn joined West Ham Amateur Boxing Club. He turned pro in 1987 and quickly made a name for himself with a streak of 22 consecutive knockouts. His ferocity in the ring earned him the nickname the Dart Destroyer. By 1990, he had won the WBO middleweight title by defeating Doug DeWitt and later defended it against Iran Barkley. His career was marked with intense rivalries, particularly with Chris Eubank, another British boxing legend.
Had your time. Let's have some parliamentary procedure here, all right? Oh, God.
I have to say, there seems an element of genuine hate between these two, Ambrose.
For sure. I don't hate the man. I just want his WBO title. I don't hate the man. I want the men's title, and I intend to prove that I'm a better fighter than the man, which I am.
Right, gentlemen, you both signed a contract.
I personally do hate him.
Their matches were highly anticipated and drew massive audiences, with their first bout in 1990 ending in a 9th round TKO victory for Eubank, and their rematch in 93 resulting in a draw. But outside of the ring, Ben had a reputation for partying hard in between bouts and admits himself as a young, life-loving boxer who trained hard but played even harder. He formed friendships with Hollywood's doorman, Tony Tucker, and London face and security boss Carlton Leach, who would corner him and look after his security occasionally. But his best friend, who he describes as like a brother, was Ray Sullivan, a fellow Ilford lad. Sullivan and Nigel Benn were close for many years and were part of an exclusive club called the BBC Billionaire Boys Club, with several other wealthy individuals. They were particularly close, and Sullivan would accompany Ben on wild nights out, but would always ensure that Ben dedicated himself to his training in between the partying. In fact, Nigel Benn, in his autobiography, goes to great lengths to speak of his love for Ray and the strong bond they had like brothers, but does not go into detail on why they had a falling out. September 1996, both Ray Sullivan and Nigel Benn were partying at infamous nightclub Legends in Westminster, London. A club decked out in chrome, black with long mirrors for the boozy celebrities to admire themselves in. It was a club popular with B and C-list celebrities, sports stars, DJs and footballers, and on this occasion, allegedly Nigel with his friend, celebrating the birth of his twins. Ray was there for reasons unattached to Nigel, as by this time they had had the mysterious falling out. But their strong bond had been broken, with allegations suggested that Sullivan had made a pass at Nigel Benn's ex-wife, although Benn refutes this, saying it's because he found out about Sullivan's drug dealing past. Rolex Ray had spent 2 or 3 years in prison in the 80s for a conviction for running Class A's. Ray Sullivan gave a statement to the Daily Mirror at the time of the horrific attack, saying, "I'm no grass. I go by the laws of the street. Whoever did it came up behind me, smashed a glass, stuck it right in the middle of my nose. I had 3 hours plastic surgery. It missed my eye by a millimetre. My nose was sliced down the middle from the bottom of the nostril to the tear duct. I've gone through hell. The article finished saying Sullivan would make a civil claim for damages up to $250,000, with Sullivan stating, "Someone should pay the price." Benn at the time said he did witness the attack, but repeatedly stated he did not hit Sullivan with a glass or an ashtray. He did not clarify whether he hit Sullivan at all, but just kept repeating there was no glass or ashtray involved. The police subsequently charged Nigel Benn with Section 18 wounding with intent. Benn was held overnight at Bow Station and taken to court the next day to pay 50 grand surety to be allowed out until he faced trial. Allegedly, whilst Benn waited for the paperwork to be processed, he signed autographs for the court staff. The court case between Nigel Benn and Ray Sullivan was a dramatic affair, filled with twists and turns. Before the case had even got underway, Benn was rearrested by police on allegations that he had offered Sullivan 100 grand to drop the charges or face a hitman's bullet. It suggested that Benn had placed a 20k contract on the head of his former friend, and in addition, the star witness Samantha Pettifer had been assaulted in the street and showered with a foul mixture which included maggots. She claims she had been warned to withdraw her statement. After interviewing Benn, the police bailed him to face the upcoming court case with conditions not to approach the alleged victims of the case. The prosecution claimed that Nigel Benn left his former friend with 105 stitches in his face after smashing an ashtray, then brutally punching and kicking him to the floor. The prosecution said the attack happened when ticket agency boss Ray Sullivan walked past Nigel Benn's VIP table. Paul Dodson, prosecuting, told Middlesex Guildhall Crown Court, "Mr. Sullivan heard glass breaking, and the next thing he knew was a crunching pain caused by a fist wielding something like an ashtray. He fell to the floor and felt like he was drowning in his own blood. He couldn't seem to breathe. He thought he was going to die." The prosecution also called up WPC Heather Bridgman, who interviewed Benn later that night, after Benn had moved on from Legends to the Ministry of Sound. Benn's Mercedes was crashed into outside the ministry, and she had been on the scene. She noticed he had a bloodied, bandaged hand, and joked she hoped he hadn't punched anyone earlier on that night, not knowing about the Legends incident. Benn allegedly brushed away the comments, saying he had grazed it against a wall, leaving the ministry to check on his car. The case was not looking good for Nigel Benn, but he did get some good PR mid-trial. It was reported by the newspapers Benn had disarmed a knife man at a charity event for kids. This was used by the defence to show Benn as a cool customer, not one prone to lashing out in violence. Trevor Burt, defending, said he had spotted a drugged-up knife man and had quickly took the blade, and Benn had talked the man down before removing him without using excessive violence. Whilst this may have helped boost Benn's popularity to the jury, he still had the key witness to worry about, one Samantha Pettifer. When the glamorous Pettifer took the stand, the case took another unbelievable twist. She stated she had got her original testimony wrong and had felt pressured, as she loved Ray Sullivan so much she would have said anything to help him. According to her, she had misinterpreted Benn's involvement, as she had seen him in the crowd, and due to what Ray had told her about their falling out, had thought it must have been him who attacked her lover. Benn's defence seized on this omission and argued that Benn did not take part in the attack. He was celebrating the birth of his identical twins, Connor and India, and would have no intention to get into a violent altercation, as was happy celebrating. Benn also disputed a policewoman's statement, saying he had cuts to his hand when interviewed, and said that didn't happen. His expensive defence team suggested that Sullivan's claims were purely motivated by financial gain, as he sought to sue Benn for significant damages in a civil case also. After a 7-day trial, the jury acquitted Nigel Benn on all charges. They were initially unanimous in clearing him of wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, and subsequently they also found him not guilty of the lesser charge of unlawful wounding. Despite his acquittal, the judge ruled that Benn had to pay his own legal costs, estimated at $100,000, stating that he had brought the prosecution on himself. The case left lasting scars, both physical and reputational, on Sullivan, who needed over 100 stitches from the attack, and continued to insist that Benn was responsible. The relationship between the two former friends, once as close as brothers, was irreparably damaged by the events, and in Nigel Benn's book, he does not cover the court case, but says the pain of losing his best friend over their disagreement affected him badly, but also said there would be no reconciling. Okay, that's the documentary on Nigel Benn's big fallout with his good pal, Ray Sullivan. Of course, they're not friends now, after all that went on. But I remember that from the papers back in the day. And I did a bit of research, and there's quite a lot of newspaper reports and stuff, and I thought it'd be interesting to have a flashback. So I hope you enjoyed it. It's a little bit hit and miss with these ones. They take a long time to do, so fingers crossed we get quite a few people watching it and commenting and giving their thoughts and memories, really, of Nigel Benn. I was a massive Nigel Benn fan. I remember the first big fight that I watched on TV with my old band was the Nigel McClellan fight on ITV. I'd watched boxing before that, but that was the one that really gripped me. That was still to this day, the emotion and him getting knocked through the ropes, and Gutteridge helping him back for the ropes. And I remember reading the papers up to that fight, and McClellan having the pit bull terriers, and reading all his background, a really rough area in America and stuff, and that he was just knocking everybody out. I was so happy when Nigel Benn won that fight. I know there was some people would like Chris Eubank, others like Nigel. I was always a big Nigel Benn fan. As I sort of got to know more people in London, especially East London, through business and different things later on, it was interesting because some thought he was a good guy, Essex boy type, whatever, before he turned over to God. But others who were in the life didn't like him. So he was a bit of a Marmite character, but I can imagine him being very much this billionaires boys club, and he could have a row on the street as well. Nigel, as you can imagine, very aggressive individual. He had loads of different things that went on. He got sprayed with ammonia by an old pal who he'd fallen out with. There was a load of ding dong about that. He got done for smashing up a few people in road rages, and was involved in some naughty stuff. He was going to shoot someone at one point. He covers some of this in his book. But interesting character, his brother, of course, Danny Benn. He worked the doors in Essex. He got stabbed badly, but he was a decent boxer as well, his older brother. I'm going to be including him in part 2 of Britain's Deadliest Doorman. So if you go into a playlist, you can catch up with the different ones. So I do different areas versus different areas. But yeah, Nigel Benn will always be one of my favourites. Not so much for his son, Connor. I've got nothing against him. I think he's a good fighter, but not to the level of Nigel Benn. If you look at Nigel Benn's early fights and then those epic fights against Eubank, such a big puncher and could take a punch as well. Great fighter, one of my all-time favourites, along with Frank Bruno. So I hope you enjoyed that. Until next time, please leave me your thoughts and comments on the comment section, and flag up anyone you'd like me to cover from boxing. I don't mind doing some boxing videos as well, as long as it mixes in with the true crime to sort of keep on point. Alright, take care.